Let's try to make sense of all the political chaos out there. To do that, we're going to reach for a classic analytical lens, Karl Marx, not as an ideology, but as a set of tools to help us cut through the noise. Let's dive in. Billionaires. The border. DEI. Woke. You hear these words thrown around all the time, right? It feels like we're constantly wading through this thick fog of propaganda, a storm of buzzwords designed to distract us and divide us. But what if there's actually a method to the madness? And that brings us right to the heart of it, the big question we're tackling today. Why is it that oligarchs seem to profit so much from all this division? To figure that out, we really need the right tools for the job. And that's where, believe it or not, Karl Marx comes in. Now, we're not talking about him as some historical figure to be worshipped. No, we're looking at his work as a powerful framework for understanding power, property, and ideology right here, right now in the 21st century. Okay, so Marx's starting point is both simple and pretty radical. He says, look, society isn't really shaped by good ideas or bad ideas. It's shaped by power and property. Who owns what and who works for whom? He called this class struggle. The source we're looking at argues that today, this very same conflict is often just disguised as a culture war, but the underlying fight over resources and power, it's still identical. So, how does this system actually create profit? A key concept here is surplus value. To put it simply, it's the gap between the value an employee creates and the wages they're actually paid. And in what our source calls turbo-capitalism, our modern accelerated system, this logic is on steroids. It's fueled by gig economy apps, global supply chains, and data monopolies that extract that surplus value from every single click and every single task. And listen to the language Marx uses here. It's so visceral, right? He describes capital as a vampire. Now, this isn't just for dramatic effect. He's highlighting that the system isn't some neutral force. It has this relentless, driving need to extract value from living, breathing people. And this right here, this brings us to the crucial point of this entire explainer. For Marx, racism wasn't just some side issue. It was a core technology of power. This quote is a strategic truth. If you can get one part of the working class to feel superior to another, you destroy solidarity. And that makes everyone easier to exploit. The culture war replaces class conflict. So let's see how this plays out in the real world with our first case study. The source material analyzes how Donald Trump uses racism not just as a personal prejudice, but as a calculated political weapon to redirect social anxiety onto scapegoats. Back in 2015, when he was launching his campaign, Trump said this about migrants from Mexico. The words were framed as him just being blunt, telling it like it is, but the source argues they serve a very specific function. But the analysis from our source is clear. This isn't an observation, it's a political tactic. It's racist dehumanization. It bundles an entire diverse group of people into a single package of danger. And the goal? To manufacture consent for repression, for stripping away rights, and for state-sanctioned violence. Similarly, Trump called for a ban on all Muslims entering the country, framing a global religion as if it were a national security threat. This really shows you the core logic of this tactic. You take a vast, diverse population of over 1 billion people and you just flatten them into a single, monolithic enemy. This deflects from internal problems, like, say, economic inequality, by creating an external one. The source argues that while people are busy fighting over the other, the real question of who owns the country is conveniently ignored. Okay, now let's turn to our second case study, the tech oligarch. The source analyzes how figures like Elon Musk use the language of the culture war to, as the source alleges, protect their own power and delegitimize any kind of democratic control. Musk has stated that DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, is simply another word for racism. According to the source, this is a really dangerous reversal of meaning. It frames efforts to combat discrimination as the actual discrimination. The political effect here is to make structural inequality invisible and to defend the existing distribution of power and privilege as if it's all just natural and meritocratic. Musk also used this highly charged language in a deeply personal context, referring to a conflict with his transgender daughter as being caused by the woke mind virus. And here, the source makes a really critical distinction. Regardless of any personal family conflict, the political effect of using language like this is undeniable. It frames a social movement for equality as a disease, a virus. This kind of demonization creates enemy images, and it helps legitimize social and political repression against an already vulnerable minority. So, what do we get when we put it all together? Well, the source argues we are seeing an alliance between authoritarian populism and tech oligarchy. One channels public anger downwards onto minorities, while the other concentrates wealth and power upwards. And division. Division is the glue that holds this whole system together. So, what can be done? The source proposes a clear set of democratic counter-strategies. First, media competency, to recognize and dismantle propaganda. Second, focus on social rights, housing, healthcare, fair wages, instead of getting bogged down in manufactured culture wars. Third, strengthen democracy against oligarchy through regulation and fair taxation. And finally, practice solidarity and protect those who are being targeted by hate. And that brings us all the way back to Marx's most famous line. Read in the 21st century, the source suggests this isn't just about one specific class. It's a democratic call to action for everyone who believes in equality. The chains today are not just economic exploitation, but also the racism, sexism, and bigotry used to divide us. So the takeaway is this. When powerful figures promote division, it's rarely by accident. It serves a purpose. The most effective response is organized solidarity. Because as our source material concludes, racism is not just another viewpoint. It is a problem to be solved.